Ghost Cult magazine welcomes in Serena Cherry of Svalbard and the new project Noctule. How are you doing today, Serena?
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it. We followed your career for a long time. Hopefully, I pronounced that correctly. I'm using my American brain to say Noctule, but I hope that's right.
It is.
Um, okay, good. Thank you. And I appreciate you shared our review, which I appreciate also, written by our good friend Steve Tovey here at Ghost Cult. And yeah, what a terrific album and what a really great lane for you to express another side of your creativity.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, it was just really nice to write something just by myself. So kind of didn't have to compromise with any other bandmates or yeah, didn't have to worry too much about preconceptions of how it should sound and just let loose on the riffs.
There it is. I love it, and it is so riff heavy. It is such a great, obviously a little less genre bending and a little more specific here in black metal and extreme genre. But there's a lot of stuff here. It's not just pummeling all the time. There's some beautiful stuff here. I know it's we'll talk about gaming and Skyrim and stuff, but I was getting like major Final Fantasy and Diablo vibes, like the original Diablo. I don't know how far back into gaming you go, but the musically, it's like, it's very broad for a black metal album in terms of like these beautiful interludes and like Labyrinthian and things like that. I really dig.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, you're completely right. I did used to play Diablo as well. And that and Final Fantasy are two of my favorite gaming soundtracks. And yeah, the Final Fantasy music is a huge inspiration for me. So definitely where I draw a lot of the kind of ideas for the melodies from.
It's so tough with gaming because I feel like if I go down a rabbit hole like I used to back in the day, I would never come out of the house again and see daylight. Um, kind of the same thing with music, but at least with music, I go for a walk and put on my headphones. Obviously, gaming is a very, sometimes a very singular experience. Although now we have multiplayer and teams and things, and technology has expanded that. But let me back it up for a second and just kind of, where did you get this idea to kind of, because clearly the game itself lends itself to extreme metal and black metal so well, and the same kind of almost a shared universe, to say shared ethos in a little way, how Skyrim is as a game. How did you first like come upon that this is the direction you wanted to take this music?
Well, I'd actually already written a couple of the tracks, and I was playing because it was national lockdown in the UK this time last year, and it basically left me with so much free time as someone who's normally touring a lot with Svalbard or doing lots of different bits and pieces of work. Suddenly I had all this free time, so I played a lot of computer games and I played a lot of guitar. And then only about 2 songs in, when I was writing this album, did I realize that the game I was playing was influencing the guitar riffs I was writing. And I think it started with, I was very inspired by the original soundtrack for the game Skyrim by Jeremy Soule. I think that's one of my favorite pieces of music ever written. And I noticed I was kind of searching for that similar feeling on the riffs I was writing, that kind of epic, very kind of like triumphant sort of sound. And then the more I started thinking about it, the more it just all fell together very naturally in my head, of just, oh yeah, I mean, these themes of the game, these kind of ancient Nordic ruins and these magnificent weapons and dragons, it is high fantasy in the same way that a lot of black metal is. So I just decided, I think I thought, oh, maybe I'll theme one song to my favorite dungeon in the game, and then it made so much sense that I themed the whole album to Skyrim.
Brilliant, great stuff. And even though obviously, the album has this theme running through it and this really close association and inspiration, I was fortunately sent the lyrics, which doesn't always happen, especially with black metal. You don't always get that opportunity to read lyrics ahead of time and listen along and read. And some of the lyrics do feel very personal, and you've always been a very, heart on your sleeve kind of person. So are some of these songs very also personal as well as sort of lateral to the game?
I would actually say no, they're not. I deliberately kind of made the lyrics a little bit more vague, and I'm amazed you got hold of the lyrics because I've tried to stop them from being published everywhere.
Oh, I'm
Because
so sorry.
oh no, no, it's fine, it's fine. Like I understand a lot of people want to read the lyrics because you want to check, with black metal what the themes are. I think that's perfectly understandable. Um, but yeah, like because with Svalbard, as you said, I wear my heart on my sleeve. The lyrics are so personal, so political. I mean, you could read the Svalbard lyrics for the third album, and you've basically read my diary from the things that I've been through. So with Noctule, I took a completely different approach to the vocals. And in the game Skyrim, you have the shouts, which are almost like a type of weapon. I wanted the vocals to emulate that. So they're kind of a noise, an empowering noise that is sort of, buried in the middle of the mix rather than like a lyrical story, like where I'm sort of opening up and bearing all my scars kind of thing. Instead, it's, just making triumphant sort of cries about dragons.
Word, and dragons need triumphant cries also. And it's in the same way in black metal and death metal, where vocals are almost a whole other instrument. They do sit really well in the pocket against the songs. It's not like a lot of black metal vocals are not trying to be nuanced. Some are, some aren't. Kind of depends on the artist. Production is also excellent on this record, so that's another thing that I think helps the vocals. As raw as it is compared to a Svalbard record, it's still better than your average recorded in a tin, black metal record, a shoebox.
Yeah, it wasn't recorded on an answer phone.
Right, shouted into a voice memo on your phone, which is fine. Some of those records are, I think about Satyricon has some reissues out tomorrow that are those recorded when they were teenagers on the worst gear on purpose possible, and now they're one of the most sophisticated groups in the world when they put a record out. So it's fine, everything in its place, right? Especially for extreme metal. And but yeah, this record's got so many layers to unpack, and also I've been kind of, I think, in this new age of the streaming age, I'm gravitating personally more toward listening to a full album. So I think one thing about this record is it really demands your attention to be patient and let it come to you, and you can't skip through this record. You have to listen to it as a whole, I think.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I kind of agree. I guess it's not, like you say, it's very dense. There's, in most tracks, there's at least sort of 4 different layers of guitar work going on. And then that's not to mention kind of choral elements that I put in there as well, or some keys and stuff. So yeah, like you say, there's a lot to unpack. And I think for me, there was this huge learning process, which is really evident on the record, of me figuring out when to layer everything up to its like maximum grandeur and when to kind of hold back a little bit. Because I mean, there's so many songs that I wrote that didn't make this album because I was learning as I was going, how to do this on my own. And it was just overloading every riff, every song, just crazy. But now, yeah, there's definitely hopefully more of a dynamic with the finished product.
Nice. I sense we may be getting a Wretched Abyss too at some point in the future. I know you have your hands full with many plates you spin and many hats you wear every day, but I have a feeling this isn't the last we've heard of this project.
I've already started writing the second album.
Nice. Do you just make music all the time? I know you have so many things going on professionally.
No, at the moment I have up until COVID, music making was a large portion of my life, probably about 50%. And then I worked a few different sort of smaller jobs just to be able to make ends meet. But then because of obviously touring and everything not being able to happen anymore, now I have got a soul destroying full-time job, which has kind of put the brakes on a little bit. I wish I could write music full-time, but yeah, basically every evening at the moment on weekends, get the guitar out and riff away.
Nice. And of course it goes without saying, I'm sure I sound like a broken record to our viewers, in these interviews, but of course, it's been an impossible year, almost a year and a half now, and the loss of finances and income for you, your peers, I hope your families well, the bands, your associated music compadres. I hope they're all well and holding up, because it has been a rough time. I feel hopefully optimistic that it's coming back. So in a way, Wretched Abyss, even though it's this really heavy emotional record, is a bit of a relief, I bet, because it's just here's something else to sort of stem the tide of life and have your music come back to the forefront for a minute.
Absolutely. It's been like a real sort of saving grace for me this year, to be honest, to be able to just throw myself into releasing this solo album. And like the album, obviously it's coming out tomorrow. So this week I've been super pumped with all the excitement and the reviews coming in. So like that has definitely lifted me up during what has been a really challenging time for everyone.
Indeed. And then, of course, I think about the last Svalbard record, which was one of our favorite records of the last few years, naturally. And you had went through so much making that record. I can only imagine what the next Svalbard record will be like whenever we get it, based on this last period of time in life. Although you seem, all smiles today, and as you should be. And, I think the challenge for any artist is you have to live your life in between projects. And you need that life experience to be able to create new things musically or artistically, right?
Exactly. I mean, any art is reactive. And if you've got nothing to react to, then you've got very little source of inspiration. So yeah, I know what you mean. Like, we've started writing musically for Svalbard, because I normally do the lyrics at the end, on top of the songs, because the songs are quite uniquely structured, so it takes a lot of time to try and craft a message that fits with the song, and where the lyrics kind of still make sense. They don't get lost in being chopped up for a certain rhythm. It's a really, really time-consuming process, and I've not begun that yet, but I have got loads and loads of notebooks of kind of lockdown ramblings, which I'm sure are going to make it onto the Svalbard album.
I think we're all going to have notebooks of lockdown ramblings by the end of this period in time in the world, on many topics. One thing I've really always appreciated you is you live your truth. You're kind of an open book. You're very savage online. You had to be. I think a lot of people have needed checking. I appreciate the verbal and, checking you've done to people who needed it. And, I'm glad that artists like you had a chance. Social media can be terrible, but also it's an opportunity, right? It's not your job or responsibility to teach everybody about whatever it is, but I appreciate that you've kind of, inadvertently picked up the mantle a little and put that force out into the world a little bit to straighten people the fuck out.
I think, with social media, it's about kind of making the most of any platform and using that to kind of find, not just people who feel the same way, but people who might be struggling with things like, women feeling left out of a metal scene, or, women who are struggling to break into a music industry. I want to be, as loud as I can for them. Do you know what I mean? And then we can find each other and support each other and help each other. So that's kind of my goal with being outspoken on social media. But I also think it's really funny, because people who look at my Twitter account think I'm really different to how I am in real life. Like, they'll meet me and they'll be like, oh, I thought you were going to be this terrifying, angry, uptight person. And that's not the case at all. And it's interesting how these things get created, and you can be perceived from your social media presence. And I do think it's always worth bearing in mind just that there is, this huge kind of element of, what you see on social media is a restricted view. It's not, the shy side of me. It's not the kind of completely lacking in confidence side of me. So yeah, it's an interesting one for sure. Something that I've learned recently has been just of anything that's written about your band, just avoid the comments.
Ghost Cult does not have a comment section on our website for this reason. As much as I want to believe that most of humanity wants to be good, No, the opposite is true online. And I think that lack of interpersonal reaction, you and I are seeing each other in person thanks to the miracle of technology. And I don't use the word miracle that much, but technology is a miracle. I'm thankful. I'm normally used to interviewing people in bars and, venues and festivals and things. So I had to adjust. We all had to adjust. But I think the barrier, no personal interactions, no visual communication, just this cold interface, first of all, emboldens a lot of assholes and know-it-alls and gatekeepers and elitists and pricks and people, assorted herbs and assholes. And so I think it emboldens them to be their worst self. And I think when we get back to real life, first of all, even just going to the pub or the bar is going to be amazing. And just seeing our friends again is going to be, terrific, like superheroes. But on the flip side, I think there's been a real drain of brain power and empathy because of the internet. And I work in marketing and social media. So it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, it's like I use it for good to help my clients and bands and friends. And on the other hand, it's terrible.
It's the best and the worst simultaneously, isn't it? Like, it brings so much good. It is through the magic of social media that we're talking now. It's through the magic of social media that I've discovered some of the biggest, musical inspirations or writers or just fantastic, like-minded people. And yeah, like, social media in a lot of ways can make me feel less alone. But then at the same time, I think it can be incredibly damaging and isolating. And like you say, I think because it gives you that veil of almost anonymity, or that kind of veil of that thing of detachment, in that you're just kind of typing words on a screen. People can be total assholes online because they don't have that kind of measurement that they would have in real life.
So true. And then even just in general, I know my brethren and my fraternity, if you will, in music journalism, and you've also been a writer, there's a responsibility. Some people don't have any, and some people do. And I think, some people here live to just be angry keyboard typists, and other people understand critique. And, there's humans out there making art, living in the world. We live, we die. We're fragile, we're faulty people. And sometimes you got to keep that perspective, because I feel like, people make mistakes, people pass away, and then they're, music and the memory is all we have. So, I feel like there's a little lack of sensitivity, to say the least, even in our field, if I can use the hour for a second for all your journalistic efforts too.
Absolutely, yeah, I completely agree. I think in my eyes, there's a bit of a lack of responsibility. And I think part of this is bred from print media dying. So if you think about it, it's a lot harder to make money writing about music now. And a lot of these big websites are relying on the clicks, they're relying on the ad revenue, they're relying on generating those comments to generate more hits and more attention for their things. So you can see it where a headline has been like a quote chopped up and completely out of context to sound way more divisive than it really is, or headlines on pieces that are completely detached from what the article's about. I can't remember the last time I saw a major metal outlet just publish an article about, hey, this band sound like this and they've got a new song out. Like, it's always, I know that I do understand it's, the stories sell, but there's, I think, a real lack of responsibility. And something that I really brought that to my attention recently was there was an article in a magazine in the UK, and the pull quote, so the big, in capital letters, was about the guy taking heroin. And I thought, we've had a lot of deaths, like, to do with alcohol and drugs recently within the metal, music scene. Why is that thing that's in capital letters? Like, because do they not realize that if you make that the pull quote, you make it the thing that's worthy of attention, which then is going to feed into the 12-year-olds who read this magazine, that to be in a band, that's what you need to do, that's what makes a creative person cool, kind of thing. And I just, I think that responsibility just needs to be taken more seriously, of how you're representing musicians and what message you're communicating to your fan base.
Right on. And you've been very vocal about mental health and the need, just not only your personal struggles, but everybody. We just had a global mental health crisis. We're in the thick of one still with everything going on, magnified by the events of the last year with the pandemic. And so, I think there's definitely maybe we're all detached anyway also. And that's another, layer, unfortunately, here. Again, not your responsibility to comment on it, but I do appreciate your feedback and input. Back to the album for a second. I don't know, obviously things being what they are, you just said you started a full-time job. Is it possible that this album is going to get performed live ever? Do you plan on taking this project at least locally on shows, if not on the road?
Yeah, absolutely. We have one show booked. It's next year, it's this time next year, and it's a festival in the UK called Incineration, and it's being headlined by Emperor. So, I mean, if that ends up being our first ever show, then that's going to be pretty crazy. But yeah, the plan is to hopefully do some tours and hopefully play some festivals. And the fun thing is because this project is so different to Svalbard, it's kind of so based in high fantasy. I've been getting really creative with like what the stage show is going to be like, which has been really fun, like thinking of all these crazy ideas of how to bring the Skyrim kind of influence into a live setting. So I'm really, really looking forward to playing live with this band.
That's amazing. Even though I'm a lifelong rock and metal person, I grew up in musical theater, so that just excited me more than you could know. I would love to see some costumes and scenery and staging. I bet you can, Bethesda, get behind this artist here and help out with some grants or some, collaborative monies so we can make this happen, man. That's what we need to do. We need to start tagging them and everything. We'll probably tag them and everything anyway. But, it would be amazing. And I think there's a huge audience for this. If your butt rock bands can be in Call of Duty, like Avenged Sevenfold and Five Finger Death Punch, but Wardruna can be in Assassin's Creed, why not have a very enhanced collaboration, not just this thing that inspired you, but, maybe the next record can take it a step further and it will, help you out somehow, collaborate with you more closely.
Oh, I would absolutely love that. That would be a dream come true for me.
Imagine some of these songs in the game or in a future game. That would be crazy.
Yeah, that would be just the best thing ever. I would love that.
Besides your new role in a worker bee job, which I hope goes as chill for you as possible, what else have you been doing to just kind of keep yourself sane and sharp in terms of just other things beside music?
Well, I've been exercising a lot more now that in the UK the gyms are back open. I've been trying to go every day. I go swimming a lot because I find that really improves my vocal technique, because obviously it teaches you the really controlled breathing and the lung power. So yeah, I've just been swimming today, and yeah, just been drawing and reading a lot and going for walks and kind of probably sounds really strange, but adjusting to having like a high pressure full-time job, which is something what with Svalbard always being busy, I didn't really usually used to have that. So it's quite a big change for me, and I have to learn not to beat myself up just for not, having the time to write a song or something.
The idea of the starving artist is over. I don't think there's anything wrong with you have to make a living to keep a roof over your head, to keep those pressures away. So when you have time to be creative, the creativity can flow. No shame in that game. I've been fortunate to, we all lost some income last year. Everybody was affected. Even if you weren't affected, your industry was affected. Someone statistically was affected. So it's same with us. I've been working harder than ever. I don't know what else to do except keep grinding away and doing what we do. And whenever I have time, we do Ghost Cult as hardcore as we can. So I feel thankful that I have this outlet, just like I'm sure you are thankful to have your outlets. And, that's what we'll keep doing. We're going to keep on keeping on despite some of this terribleness. And I do believe we need to, gravitate to the artists and support and surround these artists like yourself. So, I just hope you keep up and, buoyant in life and keep doing the things you do. This record's terrific. Shout out to Translation Lost, Church Road Records, and I think you have a third label for Germany. I'm forgetting right now. I'm sorry.
Through Love Records.
Yes, thank you. And you know, thanks to them for supporting this, and your whole team for supporting you. And just thanks for hanging out with us. I've always wanted to talk to you, and I can, you know, I hope next time it's in person at a festival or a show, and we can fist bump respectfully at a social distanced proper, you know, space.
Yes, that would be absolutely awesome. Like, yeah, we were, I mean, I don't want to give away too much, but we have been having discussions in Svalbard about coming over to a certain country. So yeah, it's all starting to look good.
Oh, you would be welcomed like heroes over here. There's a lot of people in the scene that love you guys, and collectively would love to have it. And again, maybe, you know, hopefully more new music in the future from all these projects and whatever else you're into. We're here to support it. So thank you, Serena. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for hanging out with Ghost Cult. It has been awesome.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me. It was really fun to talk to you.